started. And yeah, we got a big group here today. So a lot of folks looking to get some training.
Thank you.
All right, I have 9:45, so I am going to get things started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the second of our 6-part EUA in-service training day. So for folks who missed out on the morning one, just a quick little reminder to please stay muted throughout the entire presentation and to hold all questions until the end. You'll be able to ask the presenters any questions you have. This same Zoom link is what we are using throughout the day. So if you are planning on attending any of the sessions throughout the remainder of the day, you can just pop on the same Zoom link, or you can have it up. There will be about 15 to 30-minute breaks in between sessions. And just so folks know, each community is responsible for tracking the attendance of those who are attending these trainings throughout the day to make sure you are documenting your in-service trainings for your staff. So with that,
recording in progress.
I'm going to introduce our presenters for today's dementia-friendly design for assisted living residences and communities. We have James Piccioni and Ruth Neiman. James is the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, a statewide cross-sector network advancing inclusive age and dementia-friendly communities. Funded by the Point32 Health Foundation, the collaborative works alongside its partners to support more than 230 age and dementia-friendly communities and a statewide initiative called Reimagine Aging. Ruth is a principal with the architecture firm LWDA in Concord, Massachusetts. She is a licensed architect and the director of the Senior Environment Studio in the firm. She's focused on the continuum of living and care for elders and was involved in hundreds of projects throughout New England and beyond. She was one of the founders of the Design for Aging community at the Boston Society of Architects and is a lecturer and learner at local and national conferences. So we are so pleased that we are having both Ruth and James join us today. So thank you both. With that, I am going to turn off my microphone and video, but I am here in the background should anyone need anything. And with that, take it away.
And I will share my screen.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here, for being required to be here, and for joining us for this presentation on dementia-friendly design for assisted living residences and communities. Again, thank you to Christina and Mass Assisted Living Association for having us. I'm James Piccioni from the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative. Ruth is going to introduce herself again in a moment. But we promote and support age and dementia-friendly communities. And so when we talk to communities, that will typically mean how a community is designed, how people kind of feel and move about in the community. We think about benches and intersections and walkability and just transportation and housing and all kinds of things. And when we talk about assisted living, it's much the same, just in a kind of compacted area. But if we could go to the next slide, we're going to dive right in about where this all came from. And this work about defining dementia-friendly infrastructure came from the Governor's Advisory Committee on Alzheimer's and Other Dementias. To our pleasant surprise, named a subcommittee on physical infrastructure, and myself and Patty Sullivan from the Mass Councils on Aging were charged with putting together an elite group of experts. And of those, Ruth was one of the leaders and main experts in helping us put together and define what dementia-friendly infrastructure actually means. So the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, myself, Boston Society of Architects, and then we have some regional and local planners that are intimately involved with community design and community engagement to help us sort of make all this stuff come to life. Next slide, please. So again, our charge was to define age and dementia-friendly infrastructure and why it's essential to incorporate the design in all buildings. What does it look like in the wild, so to speak, when you're implementing age and dementia-friendly design? And where can I find guidelines to help make sure that my maintenance, renovation, and new construction in my community ensures that the environment is age and dementia friendly. So why we're doing this is you can see that dementia is an umbrella term to describe many different conditions. Some are more well understood than others. There is a projected growing population of people living with dementia, and you can see the stats on the slide. But also, there's also a growing kind of list of evidence that lifestyle impacts can impact and delay dementia in some way, shape, or form. Social determinants of health as a broad umbrella term, but also sort of healthy behaviors and how community design can sort of nudge people in a healthy direction and allow people and give people the opportunity to be healthier, to move, to remain physically and mentally active, to be more socially connected. And that's some of what we're, mostly Ruth, is going to address today. Next slide, please.
Okay, so Ruth Neiman, and what I do 105% of my time is focus on environments that are supportive and friendly without looking or feeling institutional or clinical. So in general, we all know that dementia is not a normal part of aging. It just happens to be a symptom of diseases that are more common or prevalent with the elderly. And what makes life even more difficult is that with age and dementia, there are other underlying debilitating situations that make it more difficult to find yourself in the environment. So dementia becomes an issue when it impairs the ability to function normally, to do the daily life activities and enjoy life. So people are dealing with diminished vision, diminished balance, diminished hearing, and on top of that, issues with cognitive impairment, and that makes the situation even more problematic. And I like to use this slide in my presentations because people say, what the hell is this? Why are we showing an upside down pyramid? And the reason is that the way we function and think is that conscientious design that is inclusive and accommodates older adults' needs and older adults with dementia is good for all older adults. And the features that we use for older adults are good for everybody. So dementia and age-friendly design is actually human-friendly design, and it is just good and inclusive design. And the way we think about it, even if we design a housing project that for the market rate, we always think about these features that make the design better. So what is the environment? It's basically what we hear, touch, walk, smell, and everything that envelops us makes the environment in which we live. And the environment, in order, just excuse me for a sec. In order to be friendly, it needs to provide physical and cognitive support. And physical support, very easy. Handrails were needed. Benches for rest were needed. Flat surfaces without tripping hazards. That's physical support. Cognitive support is make the environment clear. Have landmarks that inform you where you are and also give you cues and clues of the use of the space, and we'll have way more examples as we proceed. Compensate for diminishing abilities, as we said, if we're dealing with hearing impaired, visually impaired, we have in our toolkit choices and decisions that a lot of the times are cost neutral. You just have to make the right decision. And then the environment can compensate and keep people more active and independent for longer time. Accessibility and safety, that's like rule number one. And a lot of times these things are so much in our DNA and the way we think that we even forget to say them. So if you see something that you want to know more about, that is where our questions and answers at the end will focus and help. The overall overarching goal is eliminate, and I emphasize the word unnecessary on purpose, struggles, because going through a day and having to think about and make workarounds for everything you need to do is very, very exhausting. So minimize distractions, allow people to an environment that allows them to focus on tasks at hand. A noisy vacuum cleaner in a room where you try to have a little lecture or a conversation is a distraction. And the last but not least is give joy. So that is, we're not just doing things that are productive, but also thinking about making life purposeful and joyful. So the goal of the dementia-friendly environments is, in general, improving the quality of life and have people maintain their abilities and independence and dignity as long as possible. So people come to our communities with lots of history and stories and passions and wishes. And what we do with the environment, we want to sustain their identity and make it possible and enable them to continue with what they love to do. Compensate for decreasing abilities we talked about, and present manageable choices. What is when you have to make a choice of where to go, it is very important to know that even if you make a mistake, it's not critical or it's not uncorrectable. And maintain the normal is, it is true that when moving to an assisted living community, people are changing a lot. They move to a new environment, they meet new people, but they also have their normal routines and things they love to do. And maintaining that normal for people, again, makes them function better.
And
So,
Ruth, just to jump in, as you go through these bullet points on the previous two slides, as you look at those, and as we go forward in this presentation, those are all principles of just sort of good inclusive design, as you said.
Absolutely.
And so you don't look at the things that we're going to go through, again, mostly Ruth, and say, oh, that's dementia-friendly design. It's just good design that's more inclusive. But as you'll see, and as Ruth continues, you'll see some things about what not to do. So sorry, Ruth, please continue.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is something that I always emphasize, that these are not things that just, oh, this is dementia friendly. No, this is just gorgeous. So, and familiar. And so the characteristics that we work on are familiarity, and actually regional and cultural appropriate. We're not going to do Spanish Adobe style buildings in New England, but maybe they are really appropriate in New Mexico. So we were thinking about what are people coming from, what have they known for years, and keeping that familiarity. The places should be self-explanatory, and self-explanatory could be either by this example here, which is a very kind of contemporary, good-looking dining and serving kitchen in a memory care, assisted living community. And not only the place is kind of open and it's very clear when you get there, when you see the residential kitchen and smell the food and hear the clinking of the silverware, that this is what the space is all about. It's a place for enjoying and participating in meals. And then the artwork chosen is another level of emphasizing what this space is all about. But still, you look at it and it just looks great. It just looks like a very good-looking and inviting space to be. Another way to make things obvious is to emphasize entrances with color or with awnings. Additional signage also helps. Signage with pictograms if people have issues with language or with reading. Unfortunately, this lovely photograph does have an issue because it does have a couple of steps before you can enter this nice bistro. And I have not been there, so I just only want to hope that there is another equally important entrance that has a ramp. So that covers barrier-free and obviously comfortable. I mean, things that you can use without extra effort and without extra thinking and without trying to devise workarounds. So that brings us to this little object here. And I don't know how many people can actually figure out what that is. And it is actually a bench. So it's not only not human-friendly or dementia-friendly because you can't figure out what that is. It's really uncomfortable. This is really not a back. There are no arms. There's not comfortable place to sit. And the first time that I saw it, I said, it's not just not dementia friendly, it's even not a bum friendly. So that's the point. So more characteristics, calm and uncluttered. It could be that this checkout counter for a library, a little bit cluttered here, but very, very clear what it is. It has a good color enunciation. It has a sign. It has an open counter and a kind of welcoming person. And that is very kind of self-explanatory of what it is. This is a dining area in a assisted living for dementia community in San Antonio, Texas. It used to have a closed kitchen with a door and a lock on it, and kind of less bright. And the renovations kind of opened it up, made it clear what it is, made it possible to communicate and assist in meal preparation, and also did a lot of work on lighting and daylighting to create these spaces. This is another example from the same community where things are kind of well and evenly lit and kind of friendly. And even what is like the attendant or the nurse's station looks kind of non-institutional or non-distracting. And another community, which is like a great room with, if you can see, acoustical treatment, even on the cathedral ceiling, because otherwise the space would be non-manageable, and people tend to forget about acoustics. Very, very important, because you can't see it, but it really overpowers your ability to do any activity or focus on anything.
Yeah, and Ruth, sorry if I can interrupt and just jump in. So something that you notice about all these things, just to summarize, it's welcoming, warm, well lit. And if I could bring in something that we present to broader community leaders when we're talking about cities and town design, if you think about it, maybe you've seen in the community, there's a no parking sign, and it says no parking between this time and this time. There's something else for commercial vehicles, and one pole has 5 signs on it, and you're driving and you don't have time to kind of decipher all these different things. The same can be said when you're walking in assisted living and there's just signage all over the place and just an overwhelming amount of information, and you don't see that in any of these photos. And even on the top right photo in that dining area that Ruth was talking about, you have sort of a serving board that there's something hanging on, and that sort of tells you and gives you a visual clue that, well, maybe that's something about the food that I'm going to eat. So just those yeah, might be a menu, but those are the kinds of things that the little things you can do to just not, tack a piece of paper on the wall or Scotch tape something up. There's just something else to give you a visual clue about what something might be. And that's really helpful to people. But also, that's the only thing there. There's not an overwhelming amount of signage and words and things that people have to go through. So sorry again, Ruth. Thanks.
No, please do. That's the whole point. Okay. Why does it not want to advance? Okay.
So one thing that you'll get and follow up to this, or you may have gotten it already from Christina, is the actual guide that our group put together. This is the Age and Dementia Friendly Design Considerations for Physical Infrastructure. We've been promoting and elevating and spreading the word on this since we released it in September 2022. You'll see some of the sections we'll go through. Ruth will again sort of emphasize the sections that we feel is most applicable to assisted living. But really these sort of principles and themes carry through communities. So you can see the 4 major categories that we touched on. This is based off of, literature we can find, other examples from around the world, from Ruth's work and her colleagues in the architectural space, from our regional planning partners. But this is the way we kind of broke things down. There's a QR code here, but you also get the actual guide and follow up, and you have our contact information as well if you have kind of further questions after this. So you don't have to feel like you have to flash up your phone here and go for it, and you'll get everything in follow up. Next slide, please. And so what we're going to focus on, obviously today, is buildings, but there's other things that we think might be applicable to, or possibly applicable to your work, including outdoor spaces. If you have outdoor space at your residence that's open to the public, that may be something to think about. Transportation, connections to the broader community from your residents. And as you can see, sorry, I skipped over the first 2 bullets, which are sort of context setting that we buzzed through at the beginning of these slides about the setup and background to this work, and kind of where all this came from. But again, happy to answer questions when we're done and follow up to this. So now is the fun part with Ruth getting into starting with buildings. Go ahead, Ruth.
Okay. So we were debating whether we should keep this beautiful blue sky image of the Boston City Hall on the slide, and decided, okay, let's keep it as what not to do. Because the Boston City Hall has been an enigma for a lot of people. How do I get in? Am I on the 3rd floor? Do I need to go down? Do I need to go up? Where is the entrance? What is this thing? What is this thing? Is this the entrance? So the entrance really, even though this building is kind of straddling 2 levels, should be very, very clear and obvious. And there are ways to do it. Some of them are architectural. and like awnings or colors or signage. Usually signage is like almost the supportive method of helping orientation. If the building itself or the architecture itself doesn't tell the story, then the sign says, this says Boston City Hall, but this is really not the main entrance. So awnings and landmarks, and obviously the entrances have to be accessible to wheelchair and mobilized and mobility devices, and easy to operate, clear, and not sending you to the back of the building to a ramp near the loading dock. And entryways, so again, obvious. And a lot of times we're talking about a very simple device, which allows people to avoid struggling with doors. And that's the automatic opener or an assist opener, usually automatic opener that makes the door open every time a dog walks by is not a great idea. So the power assist is usually our choice. So people that can operate the door, and people that need assistance or don't want to touch anything can hit the button with their elbow. So no excessive pressure. Usually exterior doors are known for being challenging because of winds outside, and there is a very clear level of force in the code that is allowed for a door to be considered accessible. Everything needs to be visible and not hide this somewhere else. And obviously have enough space, protected space, as you see in this case, in front of the door, so you can position yourself. And if you have to push a button for an intercom, so you're not outside in the elements. And non-slip and obstruction-free is one of those things that we always forget to mention, because it's so obvious to everybody. So flooring is another topic that we touch on in our guide. And by the way, the guide is attached to the handout that you're all either already got or will get of this presentation. And one of the things that we had to actually struggle with a lot of the times is that people think that if the floor is shiny, it means that it's clean. And that is really the wrong choice for people that need to, navigate or circumvent an environment. Because if you look at this example here, where it's really glossy and shiny, but there are reflections of other elements on the floor, and also people think that it's wet. So when people feel like something is not clear to them and there's a need to take precautions, they stop, they lose balance, they fall. So glossy floor is not what we're looking for, not for environments for aging and dementia, and not for anybody. And you can see another choice right here in the top image where it looks beautiful and clean, but there are no reflections of windows or anything, and you can really feel comfortable. So another element that we use sometimes to avoid or prevent people going somewhere, and most of the time to facilitate them, and that would be avoid contrast between floors. So even in this situation where people wanted to move from resilient flooring, from like the vinyl or linoleum tile to a carpet, the transition is very subtle and in the same sort of color family as the two sides, and the two sides are in the same color family. So there is no situation like this when you're standing here, you can trip over this transition, and this dark area looks like a step down. And again, if you walk and suddenly you think that you're facing a step, you stop, you may lose balance. And this is like the most problematic thing you can do in an environment where you want people to feel safe and comfortable. Now, if you want an area not to be accessed, that's your trick. You can create a darker area in a corridor that is staff only, and that will prevent people from trying to wander or go in there if they have nothing to do there. So subtle patterns, and we in our lovely slide of what not to do at the end, you will see what non-subtle means. And handrails, you know, I am really an advocate of using handrails almost as a like enhancing trim piece, as opposed to making it look very institutional. And I also have this pet peeve of, if you do handrails, do them both sides. What do you mean by handrail on one side? People go and then they have to come back. And if their strong side or supportive side is right, you don't want them to have to go and lean with the left. So I have seen so many places where, oh, we don't need handrails, we'll do lean rails, and we'll only do one side. Why? So this would be something that I would recommend to really think about. Wayfinding. So this is again a piece of the our report that talks about wayfinding. And as I said before, good signage, which is an example here, it's a good size text, a pictogram that helps understand what it is, and also good contrast between the information and the background. There is actually in the accessibility code, there is a very clear distinction between what the contrast needs to be, because if you want to be kind of cute and do dark beige on light beige, that won't work. And again, in my view, signage is helpful and important, but they're almost in the category of a crutch, because the space itself and the way it's designed and the marks in the space and the daylight should be giving you a clue to where you are.
And Ruth, just to jump in again, just to emphasize that, excuse me, in our research, some folks with living with dementia will recognize icons, not text, text, not icons, or need the combination to put those pieces together. But also in the broader community, when you look at the stairs icon or the trash icon, in broader community design, if you don't speak English or you don't read English, that's also just considered good community design anyway, just so you can identify things
Right.
in public buildings and spaces. So please continue. Thanks.
Okay. So now we're going to a little bit more practical information, the implementation of those guidelines and principles and characteristics. And there are like three main categories, and they're maintenance of your building, like ongoing refreshing and maintenance, renovations that are heavier, changing some spaces and uses, and then new construction. And the fortunate few have the blank slate of new construction, but most people, and I would guess that most people on this Zoom call would be in the category of we're doing maintenance or we're thinking about renovations. So when you start with an existing space, the tools that you have, which are very, very powerful, but not extremely expensive, and sometimes, as I said, cost neutral, are the choice of colors, contrast, textures, art, signage, lighting. Lighting is important. If I could only do one thing in a space to improve it and had no money for anything else, I will attack the lighting. And so everything that you could do to alleviate problems and improve the friendliness of the environment. So clean slate, these are the fortunate ones. You have to think about the building having intrinsic good bones. So the need to provide crutches is diminished. So this is an example of a memory care layout that has a lot of good features in it. It's a small house, which I know everybody is kind of trying to either go towards or renovate their own spaces to create small social groups. And here you have a great reliance on daylight and views in the main common area. And you have a courtyard in the middle, which is absolutely safe because it doesn't go anywhere. So you can leave these, there's a glass door wall around it. You can leave the doors open and definitely in good weather. And the common areas are in kind of in the middle. You can see an open kitchen that will explain to you what the use of this space, and the spaces are kind of open. Very simple building topology. You don't have a lot of forks in the road where you have to make a decision. If I go right, do I get lost? So this is an example of simple circulation. And this is actually a photograph of a community, a dementia or a memory care community that kind of implemented these choices. The common serving kitchen is open. It's very clear what it is. It also has a small room behind it where some of the more commercial looking aspects are, like the ice machine that people don't usually have at home. The idea is to make the environment, even though it is not a single family home and there is a larger group of people living here, to make every aspect of it feel more homey and familiar. So stainless steel appliances are behind the closed door. And then there is this completely surrounded courtyard that provides daylight to the dining, to an activity room on the other side, and to all the corridors around. So you can, from wherever you are, you really know where you are. You come out of your room and the kind of reddish, brickish color invites you towards the dining area, but also the good food odors and the clinking of the silverware. You know something good is happening. And you can see the place is flooded with light, daylight, but also in the evenings, there's plenty of controllable lighting circuits, either with dimmers or different circuits that you can make the lighting as bright or as dim as needed. So when you do renovations, there's also a lot that you can do. You can see how this project in a corridor of a senior living building, I think this is independent living, used colors in order to emphasize the doors that are either resident apartments, and then de-emphasize doors that are janitor's closets or utility closets that are not accessible to the residents. And you can see the choice here of non-glossy floor, and also they wanted to do a little bit of decoration on the floor, so they chose two colors that are not too contrasty. So there's not a situation where people may be afraid to step on the darker area. So this is a new building, again, a memory care community and small house or greenhouse concept, where this is a lobby in front of the kind of front entrance door to one of the greenhouses, has all the features of a front door, like a mailbox and a sitting area in front of the elevator. And two other examples of basically using very contemporary looking style of design, the different color cabinets, the counter, which is in a different color than the sink, so it's clear where the sink is, and some seating area next to the counter, but even the seating next to the counter has arms, so it's not the counter stools that we are used to seeing. And we have landmarks like this wall here, a mural wall, and another large artwork that features food. More things that you can do is use some tricks to emphasize resident room doors and de-emphasize the exit door. So if we took this even further, we could have put a piece of handrail right here, and this door would really disappear in the wall. And this handrail is an example to what I said, using or treating the handrail as a feature, like a trim feature that makes the space more interesting. It looks warm, it's contrasty to the wall so you can see it, but it's not a institutional handrail. And even outside, the edge, here we use the contrast to warn people from falling over in a wheelchair using this walkway into the gazebo. So this is like almost like a warning sign, but it doesn't look that. It looks like it's a design feature, but people are now aware of the edge. Another example, I have seen many bathrooms that are going for the white on white on white cool look, not cool. So not necessarily having to use black, but making the walls behind the toilet another color, and using the toilet seat as a feature. And there are so many colors, from pastels to primary colors that you can use, but white on white on white is not, you can barely see there is a toilet paper holder, which is, by the way, in the very wrong location, because this requires twisting. And since people that use this toilet may not be yoga practitioners, twisting for the toilet paper is not a good idea. So another example of renovation that used colors and kind of more clues and cues that tell you what this is. This is a very nice breakfast room I think this is in Orchard Cove by Demella Schaefer. And these two images here, I really like to show them one next to the other because it's the same space before and after. This is a memory support community in San Antonio, Texas. And for some inexplicable reason, the original design chose to use columns to separate the corridor from the main activity room. And only few of these columns are structural. So what we did was we eliminate these columns, create another kind of separation that is not hiding what's going on here, and replaced all the institutional looking lighting with a lot of decorative and bright. And the difference between these two spaces is really unmeasurable.
Hi. Yeah, this is
Oops.
excuse
Okay. Furnishings. So you have seen some of these images before. Furnishings, again, is something that you in assisted living communities have ability to review and change and redesign. And making the right choice is most of the time cost neutral. And if you're looking at these dining tables, and I think this would be almost preaching to the choir, obviously comfortable with arms, the correct height, and some of them have casters in the front and just sliders in the back, so the chair cannot completely slide, but it's easy to move and get yourself positioned comfortably at the table. And the space advertises its use, and everything is durable and cleanable. And again, I'm sure nobody looks at this chair and say, oh, it's an institutional chair. But the seat here is made out of a vinyl material, and the back is fabric, and it's easy to clean because it has that opening between the seat and the back. And it just, the use of the color that is all from the same family, and it doesn't scream, we are protective seats, makes this look really residential. Same here, the seat is more cleanable, but it is in the same family of colors as the rest of the chair. Outdoors. So a lot of you, and hopefully all of you, have safe and inviting outdoors. This is an outdoor courtyard in a memory care skilled nursing. And we used the warmth of the cedar wood as something that makes this almost like an outdoors room. Because, yeah, it's a fence, but does it look like a fence? No, it looks like a very good looking wall to this exterior room. And some of the areas does have handrails that you can lean on. We try to separate, even though it's not both sides, the planting area from the walking or wheeling area, so that you're not inadvertently kind of falling over the edge. Lots of seating, comfortable seating, seating with arms. And when you are in this space, the door, the egress door, is really not accentuated, and it's not very clear. And it also is protected by electronic locking that only releases in case of an emergency. But the two entrances to the courtyard are very, very clear and visible, not from the angle of this photograph, but if you're outside, you're not lost. You know where you came from and how to get back. So this is my favorite how not to. And we're, I think, getting quite close to the end. So glossy, glary floors are really a bad situation for anybody. I mean, I would be very distracted and uncomfortable entering this room, especially with the sun and the gloss on the floor. This is another corridor that is quite nice and wide. It is in a senior living community, not assisted living, it's independent living. So they decided that, they decided that handrails are not needed, and I would argue that that's not a good choice. And then the lighting is very spotty. So you walk from very bright to darker to bright to dark, and that floor, the finish of the floor is not that bad because it's not like black and white checkerboard, but the patches of light are a problem. You have to think about even lighting and not up and down, up and down. And lighting manufacturers or lighting vendors, before they sell you lighting fixtures, will give you the service of doing a photometric calculation and overlay it over the plan, and then you can see very clearly the intensity of light and whether it's sufficient and whether it's even. The lower left image is just the classic example of overload clutter. Some of the things people say, oh, we don't have another choice. We had to put the fire panel right here. Maybe not. A lot of buildings that we do, the fire panel is actually in the electrical room, and there is an annunciator at the front. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that fire department or fire alarm heavy exactly when you enter. Lots of signs. The mirror is kind of distracting. And another pet peeve of mine is dangling wires and cables under, which makes this look really, really disheveled. And then the other example is a crazy pattern on the floor. People used to do that because it looked like hospitality. Now even high-end hotels try to avoid that. And auditory clutter is very important and a lot of times forgotten, because it's not something you see and it's not something you experience until it's all done. And then suddenly you get into a space that is too lively and you can hear even a spoken word from like a very short distance. So acoustics in common areas and in dining areas are absolutely critical to think about. And there are other acoustical features that can be considered, and they're like augmented auditory with people that with under carpet systems that communicate with people's hearing aids. So when you're in a large space listening to music or listening to a lecture, you can improve your ability to hear specifically to that room. And then anybody who is interested in that, we can guide you to the information. And that kind of takes me to my last slide before the questions and answers. And since everybody is muted, I cannot ask you what you think this building is. It is designed by one of the star architects, and it is in Las Vegas. And this is what it is: Center for Brain Health in Las Vegas. So this place has clinics, and they care for ambulatory patients. There's no sleeping in that building, but somebody has to get close to this building in order to see their therapist or doctor for brain or dementia situations. So I think we're open to questions. We will be, as James said, we will be open to questions following by email. And if you want to have some advice or consulting for your next maintenance or renovation, or if you're lucky, new building, that would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Christina, I don't know if folks want to put questions in the chat or if you unmute, but we're ready to discuss. And